Is Tesla's recommendation to charge LFP-equipped standard range vehicles to a 100% state of charge actually good for battery life? In this video, I'm going to examine some of the latest data on this topic and answer that question. I'm John, and this is Cleanerwatt. So if you pull up the latest version of the Tesla Model 3 owner's manual, for example, Tesla has removed the section in the owner's manual that specifically talked about lithium iron phosphate batteries. That instead has been replaced by a note here that says to refer to information on the vehicle touchscreen, and it gives how you can find that, and that gives you the specific charging instructions for your vehicle. I assume that Tesla removed the specific LFP charging instructions here because it was confusing to some people, and they decided just to make it specific to each vehicle in the vehicle's software. And so I think that's actually a great move here. But nonetheless, if you pull up an older version of the Tesla Model 3 owner's manual, it had a note here under the charging section, quote, "For vehicles with lithium iron phosphate LFP high voltage batteries, Tesla recommends you keep your charge limit to 100% even for daily use, and that you also fully charge your vehicle to 100% at least once per week." But what makes lithium iron phosphate batteries different, and why does Tesla recommend that you regularly charge them to 100%? I believe the answer to that question is the result of an LFP battery having a very flat voltage fluctuation during charging, which makes it a little more difficult for the BMS system to really calculate the state of charge kind of in the middle parts of the cycle. In order for the battery management system to really determine accurately what the voltage is of the battery cell, a regular 100% charge is needed for calibration. In addition, regularly charging to 100% can help the system balance the charge in the various individual battery cells of the pack to make sure that there aren't any specific individual cells that are being overcharged. And so this is an important part of maintaining your lithium iron phosphate battery. And Tesla recommends charging at least once per week to 100%. But is regularly charging a lithium iron phosphate battery really good for battery health? Back in October of 2022, I published a video about this topic with early LFP battery retention data from Tessie. Based on early data, trends indicated that the Tesla LFP batteries were losing around 10% of their capacity after only 50,000 miles versus the same 10% loss at about 100,000 miles for Tesla's nickel-based battery packs. In that past video, I theorized that Tesla's recommendation to regularly charge to 100% was the cause of this faster degradation. But what does the data here in 2024 actually suggest about this? Does the latest data still indicate that Tesla's lithium iron phosphate batteries are losing range faster than Tesla's nickel-based batteries? I reached back out to Tessie recently, and they sent me back some of the latest data on how Tesla's LFP-equipped vehicles are doing when it comes to average battery capacity retention. So in this chart, you can see that the average amount of usable battery capacity for Tesla's LFP-equipped battery packs is a little bit over 67 kilowatt hours. And after around 63,000 miles or so, you can see that the usable capacity drops down to a little bit below 62 kilowatt hours. If you do a little bit of math, that equates to roughly an 8.2% capacity loss after 63,000 miles. And the good news is that is less than the 10% degradation estimate at 50,000 miles that was previously mentioned. So it looks like Tesla's LFP batteries are doing a little better than expected when it comes to battery capacity retention. But nonetheless, how does this compare to the rest of Tesla's vehicles? If you go over to tessie.com/stats, you can find some great data about various aspects of Tesla's vehicles, including the average battery capacity retention of Tesla's vehicles after 100,000 miles. You can see that this data is from a very large data set, over 118 million drives, and this data was pulled on January 10th of this year. With that being said, I took this chart and marked some of the data points so that we could calculate the average battery capacity retention for these vehicles, and you can see that I estimate, based on this chart, that the average capacity loss for Tesla's other vehicles after 63,000 miles are as follows. The Model S should lose around 3.2% on average of its battery capacity, the Model X 6.8%, the Model Y around 7.1%, and the Model 3 around 7.7%. And you can see that I've also calculated those same numbers for after 100,000 miles. Now, do note that that data does include all of Tesla's vehicles over those 118 million drives. So that will include some lithium iron phosphate-based battery pack vehicles in that data. But nonetheless, it is a good baseline to compare this to. So really putting this side by side, in this chart, I've taken the battery capacity retention after 63,000 miles of Tesla's regular fleet versus the specific LFP-based battery pack, and you can see that that 8.2% really isn't drastically more than the rest of their fleet. With that being said, it looks like Tesla's recommendation to regularly charge to 100%, and I assume that most owners are doing that, really isn't leading to a drastic difference in battery degradation. So this is really good news. However, I'd like to share my personal opinion on how I would charge a lithium iron phosphate based battery pack in a Tesla if I owned one. Now, I do want to be really clear here before I share my personal opinion that I'm not saying that I know better than Tesla on this. I believe Tesla's recommendation is such because there really isn't going to be a huge drastic difference in battery degradation by charging to 100%. The data seems to suggest that being the fact. However, I personally am willing to take a little more effort to maximize battery life a little bit more. And I believe with the battery charging recommendations that I'm about to mention, that you could actually have a little bit less battery degradation in your LFP-based battery pack than average. Please do your own research. I'm not saying that you should do what I'm saying here. I'm just telling you what I would personally do. But please do your own research and make your own decision on this. But here's what I would personally do if I owned a Tesla with an LFP-based battery pack. First of all, with daily use, I would only charge to around 80% or so. I would not daily charge to 100%. However, I would make sure that I did charge at least weekly to 100%, once again to make sure that the BMS system is accurate and that the cells are properly balanced in the pack. This is important, but I wouldn't do it maybe quite as often as every day or every time I charged, just basically once a week. Second of all, as much as possible, I would not let the state of charge drop below 10% or so, because when you get to a low state of charge, that can also damage the battery if it sits there at a low state of charge for too long. It's really best to keep the battery state of charge somewhere in the middle zone and not the extreme lows and not the extreme highs for long periods of time. In addition, when I did charge to 100% once again weekly or so, I would not leave the vehicle at a 100% state of charge for a long period of time, but I would try to time it such that I charged it to 100% and then drove it shortly thereafter. Because leaving a battery pack at a 100% state of charge for long periods of time is not a good idea. One of the reasons for this is when you fully charge a battery, it reaches its max operating voltage at that point. And as the battery is discharged, that voltage slowly drops. And based on my research, high elevated voltages in a battery cell can lead to electrolyte degradation in the battery, and that of course is a bad thing there. But do note that since LFP batteries do have a lower nominal and max voltage than nickel-based batteries, this electrolyte degradation should be less of a problem. And I believe this is one of the reasons why you can get away with charging an LFP battery to 100% and not have as drastic of a degradation as you would have with a nickel-based battery if you did that same thing. With all that being said, once again, for the average owner, just sticking with that 100% charge limit is probably okay, and that's Tesla's recommendation. So it's going to be safe to go with that. But I would be once again willing to take a little bit extra effort to maybe save a few more percentage points over the years and extend the life of my battery and extend the usable capacity over time. I would love to hear from you in the comments section below your personal charging habits if you own a lithium iron phosphate based battery pack Tesla, and please share how much range you still get with your vehicle based on your charging habits. I'd also like to say once again, thank you to all of those of you who support me through Patreon. Your support makes a really big difference and does help make these videos possible. If you'd like to find out more about how you can support my work through Patreon, I will put a link in the video description. Thank you so much.